Okay, hello there. I usually don't see videos, as you can see by the quality of this one, but this time I wanted to just talk about the reaction of the press to what happened in this debate between Jordan Peterson and this philosopher. I can't pronounce his name, but Slavoj Žižek, and yeah, it's a little bit embarrassing to see how fast the media has gone to claim that this Zizek guy has actually defeated Jordan Peterson. It's really like they were waiting for the first opportunity to claim that Jordan Peterson is dumb and that he has nothing useful to say, and I think this is so unfair. I don't know what debate they saw, but I didn't see that. And this, you can see this bias playing most in the media. So this is not surprise because they were against Jordan Peterson from the beginning. I think they see him like a bad thing or something. They cannot see past their prejudices, and you don't have to agree with him in everything. I certainly don't agree with Jordan Peterson on everything, but I respect the fact that he's trying to at least start a debate. And so let's I have here three articles by one by the Toronto Star, I guess, Toronto Life. I don't even know which one it is, but yeah. The other one by the Now Toronto, which I don't know if it's for the Canadians is an important thing or not. Probably not, but yeah. And then we will have this one, the Post-Millennial, which I don't suppose it's anything important, but let's still use these three ones as a symptom of what's going on, right? So let's start about this one, what people are saying about Jordan Peterson. So come and show down with this guy, right? And so I won't go very deep into this. It's just they select like a few tweets from few people like reacting to the thing, and they immediately want to say that they immediately want to cite people who are claiming that Zizek was like this one way more interesting than Peterson and crap. Okay, so that's one, a guy who claims that is that, and another guy that said very little jokes and things like that had nothing, they may be funny but they didn't really support anything that happened in the debate. And this guy saying the guy Zizek totally owned Peterson, yeah. So it may be true or not, but this is again that has nothing to do with the ideas on the debate. So they go on the lavish way, like say, okay, this is what people are saying about what happened there, and then they say, well, some people are saying something, about Zizek too, and what they go to say is that, well, he just looked like a feral cat. It's somewhere here. So that's not to say that Zizek was completely escaped criticism. A lot of people apparently think he looks like a sort of feral, trash-eating animal. So while they criticize quickly Peterson's ideas and how they try to be balanced, and so the criticism they put on this guy is in his look, which is totally, there is plenty more to say about what happened there than the look of the guy, So yeah, this is how unbiased it is. What they, it's really shitty. That I'm pretty sure they could bring up some interesting tweets, some interesting observation, but they chose to, leave the discussion in such a stupid level. So that's kind of getting an understanding on they're just looking for a pretext to attack this guy, right? So moving on, then we have this one. It's a little bit more deep, I guess. Jordan Peterson versus Zizek was more a performance than a debate, which I agree actually was more a performance. But the interesting thing is not the title. The title is right, it's good. The interesting thing is the analysis they do about what's going on. So they start quite measured. They start saying that that it was they had the time to prepare the event and things like that. And then they go to say, interestingly, that determining who won the debate feels impossible, and ultimately immaterial. wow, this is such a balanced thing to say, such a intelligent thing to say. And then, surprisingly, they go on to actually do exactly what they say, that it's impossible and immaterial to determine who won. And they go really quickly to, and slowly but surely, they are going to reveal who they are actually vouching for. So, they start describing what happened. And so they said that Peterson would attack Marxism from the source, and he used the source as Marx and Engels' Communist Manifesto. So that's accurate. And then they go to describe what Zizek answered to this criticism of the Marx ideology. And so they said that he abdicated his apparent role of defending Marxism himself, which he did quite after. He said that he won't defend the thing. He actually said sometime that capitalism won. He admitted, not in this intervention, but at some point he said that, right? So the thing is that they go on to say, let me see if I can find it here. So it's here. So they start slowly, but then they go more and more, revealing their bias, right? And so this is the interesting part. During back and forth, Zizek seized the opportunity to interrogate Peterson on his superficial reading on Marx. They're already saying, okay, superficial reading of Marx. As if they knew what actually Jordan Peterson had read of Marx or not, and much of it publicized these states were so-called postmodern neo-Marxists. And the guy asks, where are these neo-Marxists? I want names, right? And they claim here that this is a phrase that actually defined this article, right? That it reveals the person who is writing the thing, reveals what he really thinks and how biased this person is. He says, indeed, much of Peterson's intellectual authority derived from his attack on these other academics, who he believes have hijacked the academy and broader intellectual discourse. Really, I mean, this is as poisonous phrase as you can have it. To say that the intellectual authority of a person derived from his attack to an academic, he say that he has nothing interesting to say. He has no proper, authority out of his own ideas. He has to create his authority by attacking somebody else. I mean, anybody that knows anything about, that what he says is saying, and what this guy is actually saying, Peterson, can immediately understand that you may agree or not with this, but his authority doesn't come from the attacks he's doing here. His authority comes first because he's actually practicing clinician, so he actually talked to people instead of philosophizing all the time. And he actually has published a lot of articles, he collaborates with a lot of people, and he has a long career on in these fields. So, to claim that, to reduce this complex person to this in this way, to say that his authority derived from attacks he takes to another, this neo-Marxist postmodernist, as he claimed, is such a disservice to the truth. And then they go to say that Zizek has patiently, sorry, my pronunciation of English is not very good, so patiently attempted to explain that, so they don't go to explain what Peterson answered, which was actually a very good answer. He cited an statistics, which is better than giving names. If you want, give me names and say, okay, I have an statistics for you about the departments in the United States that treat with social science. So this is better, because we don't necessarily have to talking about, figures like the top philosophers embracing this thing. It's actually worse than top philosopher because, to be honest, nobody reads the top philosophers, right? Except the people who are interested in this thing. You're talking. He brought something better. He brought the people who are actually practicing in the social sciences departments in the universities in the United States are actually taken over by these ideologies. I mean, the statistic is there. You may argue that the statistic is not accurate. That's another thing, but. So it's better to have a statistic than to have just one or two names. But he also cited a couple of names, the French people. the French, let's say, postmodernist, the old ones, and then they don't explain what Peterson answered to that, which is this statistics plus the name of this French postmodernists. And they only said that Zizek, as patiently as possible, attempted to explain that this French, that Peterson thought, like if we were little children, you have to explain patiently that he's so wrong, that these guys actually weren't Marxists. They attacked Marxists. That is irrelevant. They are not Marxists. Peterson didn't say Marxist. He said neo-Marxist. It means that these people were Marxists before, and you can actually see that. I mean, these people started being Marxist, and then, as Peterson explained, they turned into something else because they weren't. It was impossible to keep being a Marxist if you had any brains. After all the data, all the information that came about what happened in the Soviet Union and things like that, so they lost the moral ground, and so they had to mutate into something else. And what they did, according to Peterson, is they went to a different ideology, this postmodernism, and it doesn't matter how Marxist they claim they are or not. What it matters is that if they carry on some elements of Marxism to the new ideology, and that's what Peterson actually explained very clearly. They actually bring the class struggle, the class fight, as the oppressor, the separation between oppressor and oppressed, as the main cornerstone of the postmodernism. Apart from the people will say, okay, the main cornerstone is not that, is that there is no single truth and blah blah blah. But still, they bring on this thing because it's all about power and whatever. So the thing is that Peterson correctly identified. First, he replied very correctly to Zizek's question, give me names. He said, okay, I have a statistic for you. You want names, go to each university social science department and just see the list of professors there. And then take a probability, whatever percent the statistic gave you, and then you have names, But on top of that, he also gave them the postmodernism name. So what is the thing with these people? They have to go with Marxism. It's neo-Marxism. Like conservatism and neo-conservatism are not the same thing. Marxism and neo-Marxism are not the same thing. So Peterson is actually introducing a new term here, which is not in the mainstream use. Nobody's using neo-Marxism, so he actually defined the term as a postmodernist people who actually carry on the element of Marx ideology of the class separation of oppressor and oppressed, and is projecting that in different many other areas of separating people into these categories, and explaining everything in society with that. It's reductionist, as Marxist ideology is. So they carry on a lot from Marx to this without actually calling themselves Marxists. To anyone that has actually studied Marxism at some point, I'm not an expert in Marxism, but I had to study Marxism because I was born in a communist country, and so I was forced to study Marxism. And so anyone can recognize that, the actual teaching of Marx is not this, it's not the nuanced, things that Marx said here and there. It's actually the things that are in the Communist Manifesto, plus a few of the theories that he, but not to the extension of the Capital, Das Capital book. So they just bring a little extract of Marx, and that's what they teach people, because if not, it would be, because Marx was a very prolific author, he wrote a lot. Most of it is wrong, but still he wrote a lot, and sometimes it were very interesting ideas. So I'm giving that to Marx. He was an interesting philosopher, he had a lot of interesting ideas. It's not obvious why he's wrong. That's why it's interesting to hear this kind of debate. So yeah, I mean, they just start going more aggressively. They started saying that, let's recap that they started by saying that it was, ultimately immaterial to actually determine who won the debate, and they just do that. They just go a couple of paragraphs later to say that, this guy walked through, he actually treated Peterson with such, tenderness. He actually, like a little children that doesn't know what he's talking about. He kept giving, at some point I had, one of the things that he did is offering him, lecture recommendations to Peterson, little kids have to be educated, and we have to offer this this lecture, recommendation, so he actually understands what he's talking about. I'd say this is BS. Like, if you saw actually the debate, and if you are not totally taken over by the hate to what Peterson had to say, or his fear, whatever envy you have of somebody that is actually have something to say. And I'm saying I don't agree with Peterson 100%, but still you have to recognize that he's doing something interesting and he has some interesting ideas. And the media is so biased. There used to be a time where the media would inform what happened, more or less trying to be impartial, never managed to be completely, but trying to be impartial, trying to present balance. And nowadays they only pretend to be balanced, and you see it here. It's so obvious, that they are actually vouching for one of them, and trying to destroy the reputation of the other. And they've been trying from day one, and that's so revealing, and so and they go on to say that Zizek is an actual philosopher, like he's an authority figure, and so the other guy is just a punk that has nothing to say. It's just pretending that I think Zizek himself was wouldn't agree with that only a philosopher has something to say, And actually, he kept trying to tell to the audience, okay, shut up and listen, because this is not about cheering, So I respect Zizek because he was, at least he tried to keep the conversation interesting and not make it about scoring points and something like that. Sometimes he's a little bit of a buffonesque figure, if we can say, on purpose, obviously. And that's not the most interesting thing for a serious discussion, but still is his character, so whatever. And so these people here, just like he was most of the time jumping from one topic to the other. He's obviously a very prolific, interesting figure, but it's not enough to display to everyone how smart and how well read you are. You actually have to make a point, and you have to carry the ideas in a line, or several lines, but you have to take care of continuity on what you're saying, so you can actually deliver a point. And that was not happened. I mean, Peterson tried to deliver a point from the beginning with his analysis of the Communist Manifesto. It's not the Communist Manifesto, by the way. He used the Communist Manifesto as the central points where these issues are manifested in a way not over-intellectualized. But this is present in any of Marx's work. If you read Marx, if you ever read any Marx, you can identify this element. Obviously, Marx didn't only talk about this thing. He brought interesting things about capitalism, the economy, and all these things. But the main lines that run through Marxism and that actually went on to create real, implementations, like in many communist countries, in all communist countries, they claim. I mean, I don't know what is wrong with these people. These people call themselves Marxist, in Cuba, in Venezuela, to a lesser degree, because they play in Venezuela they played a little different story there, but still they're Marxist. But Russia, China, they call themselves Marxist. They have a communist party as the only party, but still people won't believe. Okay, but that's not really Marx. They really didn't understand Marx. Really, I mean, how much do you have to go to understand Marx? Are you going to make a party with the ideas of Marx and say no, but you need 20 years to read Marx until the last paragraph, until the last nuance thing he may have mentioned, so you can actually, of course not. I mean, people take of Marx what Marx actually synthesized. Marx said many things, but he also synthesized his ideas in an interesting way so people could follow the ideas, and that's what the Communist Manifesto is. He synthesized what he believed it was his main points, Marx and Engels, right? And delivered it in a way not over-intellectualized, right? So obviously, what you get from reading 20 years of Marx's work would be the support for these ideas. And some doubts that Marx may have or not, because Marx was not an idiot. He could see that something was wrong in his model, because the workers were getting richer and richer even in his lifetime. And, so something was wrong, and that's why Marx never finished the Capital. Engels finished the Capital. He died without polishing the whole thing. So he was not, the best intellectual figure you may think, but at least he was honest in trying to seek the truth. I mean, Marx. While Engels was a little bit more practical guy oriented, so he just packed up, finished the Capital, and just published it. And so we have to give to Marx the thing that at least he had his doubts, at least in the end of his life. And so it's more complex than this. I mean, this is such a disservice to the conversation that was going on. The conversation was interesting, and these publications, they don't analyze what really went on there. They just are cheering for Zizek, and it's so embarrassing to see this. I mean, the shallowness of these comments, the little depth of the ideas presented here has are unbelievable. It's embarrassing. It's really embarrassing. I mean, you can still think that Zizek won the debate, but you have to bring something to the table more than say, okay, there is a poor little Peterson there, he's facing a real philosopher, and he lost because that's not enough. What are the real ideas that we're discussing there? So yeah, let's leave it like this in this article, because it really doesn't deserve, this going on. It just goes more and more to but this is going on and on more that, okay, Zizek, the authority figure against Peterson, the little child that doesn't know what he's talking about, and this is embarrassing. So let's move on to the next thing. And so this is a little bit more interesting. This is from the Post-millennial. They tried to be. I mean, this is not a real newspaper, obviously. I think so, but this is a little bit more, at least presenting both sides of the equation, and so I would say the people see the key moment of the argument when Zizek actually asked this question. Okay, give me name. Where are these neo-Marxists that you are talking about? And actually, these neo-Marxists are not going to be found in literature or any other. The people are not going to say, "Oh, hey, I'm a neo-Marxist." This is a term that Peterson has coined. Interestingly, he has a definition for it, and that definition, I already said, is these people carry on from the Marx ideology. They don't carry on everything. They carry on the class struggle, the separation between oppressor and oppressed, as one of the central tenets of their ideology. And then they bring more things from postmodernism, and you have to be blind not to see this playing on the speech of some people, especially on the far left. And so that's what Peterson is bringing to the table. He's identifying a current of thought, and I think that's always an interesting thing. If you identify a current of thought that is not being properly named before, and you coin a terminology for it, and that's an interesting thing. You may agree or not with that, but it's an interesting observation. So this postmodern neo-Marxist is actually an interesting term, and if you hear to them talk, when I say to them, you say extreme left politicians, for example. You will see that they make a lot of emphasis in oppressor and oppressed and the class struggle and and assume that the poor are good and the rich are bad, and if you don't see that, it's because or you're blinded by the ideology or you haven't talked to any of these people. And I'm not saying they're bad people. They're many times they're good people. They're just possessed by this view that the rich people are evil and oppressors, and the poor people are so good and they wouldn't kill a fly. And so, but these guys also in this article they just go on quickly to say let me just try to find the this is a bar where they are trying to introduce what happened, and so this is the thing. I mean, they introduce what Peterson talked about and whatever. Let's not go into details because they don't bring in any they don't bring any interesting. Peterson made very interesting points. 10 points where he said he believed that the Marxist ideology is not just a communist manifesto. Marx ideology is wrong. It's tremendously wrong, and it's a very interesting synthesis. We may have a few ideas about what Marx is wrong, I certainly had a few, but I think Peterson made a very interesting synthesis of this, of these core points where you can find the Marxist ideology to be wrong. And I think they're on point. They're really good, synthesis. So he doesn't mention that. He doesn't go through said what are the points actually that Peterson made. He just going to say that Peterson said this or that some student paper might be more logical than the Communist Manifesto. He also said that he understands that the Communist Manifesto is a call to arms, so it wasn't designed to be overly intellectualized. So, and he also pointed that these people were, this happened many years ago, so you have to give to them, the benefit of, that happened many times ago. There is many things we know now that Marx didn't know, right? So, Peterson was gracious, or at least to consider that, to concede that you have to read Marx with, with the knowledge that, history have proven wrong in so many ways. So, and he didn't know that. Now we know he didn't know. But still, the point is not what Marx knew or not knew. The point is that many of the courses of thought or the points that are present in the Communist Manifesto as well and most of Marx's work. The Communist Manifesto, as I said, just present the main points that Marx himself believed were the main points of his ideology in a not intellectual way, in a way that is a call to arms, right? So it's actually a good synthesis of Marxism. It's not as idiotic as they put it to take the Communist Manifesto as Marx wrote the Communist Manifesto because he believed it's the main point of his ideology without having to back up every point with the super intellectualization, right? So, or super rational arguments. So it would take a long time to try to do that, and he tried with all his other work. So it's still valid to point out that, okay, these are the main points, and the best, reduced expression of these points is in the Communist Manifesto. That's correct. That's why they give to every communist, if you have ever been in a communist, meeting, I have. If you have ever been in the real communist country, I have, If you have ever seen what the Communist Party actually pushes to the people to read, or should I say force them to read, you will see that actually the Communist Manifesto is a pretty good, abstract of the ideas that they're pushing on people, right? And that might go, they may go to the extra mile to trying to back up this with rational belief or not, or rational ideas or not, from Marx himself or not, but people would take these ideas anyway, and use it in the practical implementation of fair societies, egalitarian societies, or whatever. So it's very valid to bring these points, and so they don't go to mention this point. The point is really interesting, he made. They just go to the stupid, superficial stuff. When he mentioned, he talked for half an hour. But they just mentioned, he mentioned that, the logical coherence of the Marxism manifesto wasn't the best, and, that's a totally superficial comment to say, right? And so they just go on to do this over and over. So when Peterson proposed something, they stand up and talk. They just bring the superficial, and when Zizek comes, they don't bring anything interesting from Zizek either, because Zizek, to be very honest, this guy Zizek didn't have a line of thought. He just trying to, he's a typical, I would say, Marxist. He jumped from one thing to the other, like quickly mentioning things and then run to the next thing. Because if he actually stand and try to defend some point, he would, he would be defeated, I think. And he actually, he said enough. He said, Zizek said, I admitted capitalism won. So let's start by that. Just by that phrase, the whole discussion already means that, Peterson won. Marxism is a poison of ideology, and it has created a lot of suffering, and it has no place in modern society. I think that's, he went on to say he's not a Marxist. So for whatever reason, he agreed to go there and argue under the title. He knew the title of the thing, this, Marxism, happiness and blah, blah. I don't think it had anything to do with happiness, but he went on trying to defend Marxism, I guess. That's if he agreed to go, Maybe he agreed to go because it would boost his popularity, but he agreed to go, and he knew the topic, right? The title, they had to agree on that much. And so Zizek didn't defend anything. If you are honest and you see there what ideas Zizek defend, he didn't defend anything. He conceded on everything. The only thing that he did is try to point out to Peterson that this neo-Marxist doesn't exist, and that's because they don't exist unless you believe Peterson's definition of them and you start looking for them. So if I tell you, hey, I have a hyper complex set super parabola that I think is present in the next room, and you would tell, no, it's not, I don't know what the hell you're talking about. That doesn't mean that it's not there. I don't know what it is. That's a different thing. So you have to start by saying, okay, what is your definition of this very weird concept that you bring into the table? And then try to absorb the definition, and then see if you can apply it to the reality, and if you get some interesting observation. So I think that you have to be very blind if you don't go and identify people who are neo-Marxist, because they are not Marxist, they're not Zizek, they haven't read Marx necessarily, but they still believe in some of the core principles that are in the Communist Manifesto. And so if you don't realize that these people are there, and actually there are many, then you don't have political conversation with people around you, because the moment that you start talking to people, you find this hyper empathizers, or they care for everyone. They think that the most important thing in society is that everybody's taken care of, that nobody's left behind. And while that is a lovely, I tend to like these people. I tend to like people who are very leftish and caring, and I love them because they are really, many times they're really honest. But they are just so limited in their understanding of the things. They are caring for, you cannot care for a country the way you care for a family, the way you care for a small community. Unfortunately, because it's complex, so you have to study a lot to realize why, and these people don't have any idea why, And Peterson, precisely, much of what he's trying to present is actually why, even if you try, you can't. And that's why every time, the evidence actually is that doesn't work. It doesn't have to be rational. The evidence that it doesn't work is, okay, it's been tried many times in communist countries and it doesn't work. So the people suffer, the people are unhappy, the people are miserable, and still there is a lot of oppression. There is more oppression. So something doesn't work. You don't have to totally understand why it doesn't work to realize, okay, it doesn't work, because the experiment didn't work, right? And it's been tried many times, and it's still being tried in Venezuela and other places like that, and it doesn't work. But the people can just keep making this argument again and again, because they just are driven by empathy and the compassion. And while these, let's say, these attributes are very desirable in a small group, they are not desirable when you are in a big system like a state or something like that, because you need to have a system view. You cannot be caught in each and every individual's needs and suffering if you want to run a complex system, right? So there is a place for both. I'm not saying that compassion has no place in society. I'm saying there is a place for compassion, and there is a place for rational thinking, and there is a place for realizing what even your rational thinking doesn't reach, which is you cannot plan the economy. You have to let a certain degree of evolutionary, development to play out, which is what capitalism does. The capitalism let the forces of capitalism play out and to a certain limit, and see what wins. And then you have innovation, then you have companies dying all the time and other companies replacing them, and that's healthy, although it may seem inhuman to some people. And there have to be safety nets designed by the state to protect the people who are on the bottom of the pyramid of hierarchies, and they are the least favored by many causes. It's not so simplistic as just a capitalist. Sometimes you're just unlucky, sometimes you have a disease. So there is room for compassion in society. But there is also room for, being intellectually rigorous and decide that, okay, I don't understand everything that is going on an economic level. I can't put forward only a single idea, compassion for, compassion as the main driver of everything that I'm going to decide about the economy, because it doesn't work. And so this is the thing. This is what is never, admitted. These people go on to say, I have to say, I don't understand what people say that Zizek said anything interesting. I don't hear. He made a couple of observations that may be interesting, but he didn't have a line of thought. He didn't have he didn't defend any point. He didn't said, he didn't plant a flag and said, okay, this is my point, I'm going to do it. He didn't do that. He just keep dancing around the points that Peterson made and bringing some funny, semi-funny observations and all that, and what they may be interesting, they are not defending a point. So it's like, it's like a guerrilla war. When there is a guerrilla war, while Peterson presented a line, like a front line of his, okay, this is what I stand for, this is the lines that I am trying to defend on. Zizek didn't present any, he didn't show in front of the Peterson, let's say, ideas armies and presented his own line of battle. He just kept appearing and reappearing in different sides and attacking there and right and then running away. He didn't actually stay to defend the place he attacked, So the most famous thing is when he asked for names of this, who are these neo-Marxist postmodernists, and wow, people cheered and whatever, and then Peterson answered, and he said, okay, here you have an statistics about the social studies departments in the US. So there you have it. You don't need names if you have a statistic. Why is a single name more important than, or saying 2-3 names, a dozen names more important than the whole statistical study about the population, the population of this kind of professors that are in university? They reflect better the ideas of the majority of the intellectuals in these areas of social science than a couple of very highly regarded philosophers. It doesn't matter what Zizek thinks, it doesn't matter, it matters if it's interesting, but what Zizek thinks about something doesn't confuse what the majority of the intellectuals in social science believe, and so Peterson answered a very good answer, actually. Here you have it in statistics. And then he went on to point out that the people who were the French postmodernist thinkers, they drew a lot from communists, and many times they were communists before, by their own admission. And then Zizek replied, no, these people weren't communists, they attacked communism in their own reasoning because, well, hello, that's what postmodernism does. They attack any grand rationalization and all-encompassing rationalization, but that doesn't mean that they didn't learn something and bring something from their communist time. That's why Peterson didn't say communist, he said neo-communist. And so, again, I'm making the same point. The fact that you don't, the fact that you don't agree that there are so-called neo-Marxist, postmodernist people is because you're not going to find this term anywhere else except in Peterson's ideas. And so if you want to actually find these people, you need to actually read the definition that he provided and then go looking for people who match this definition, and you will certainly find them. So, it's incredible. It's incredible the disrespect and the shallowness of these discussions. And it's like they are rushing to bring Peterson down, like they have always done. Now they have an avatar. Like, this is a guy they're using as an avatar of a champion to say, okay, this guy, completely destroyed Peterson, and I think that Zizek himself realized that he didn't destroy anything. He may be, like many academics are, he may be a little pricky in his assumption that he's so smart, and I'm not mean that as an insult. I mean, like, if you know any academics, you know what I'm talking about. They're not the most modest people, and they have reason to be, because they are like professional athletes of the mind. They have trained their reasoning, their rational side so much, But I think that at any point you can see Zizek, obliterating Peterson's ideas in any way, On the contrary, what you see is a guy on retreat, admitting he's not the Marxism, admitting that he has not a coherent body of thought to bring to the table, that didn't hear any coherent and really interesting exposition of a complex body of ideas. I heard interesting but very dispersed ideas that he brought to the table. And he didn't stand for anything. He just attacked Peterson. So that's what I'm saying. It's a guerrilla war. What he did with the Peterson's ideas. I mean, instead of a regular war of ideas where both armies are in their place and they're trying to defend their place, he didn't defend any ground. And so that's it. I mean, I guess I will leave it here. If people are for whatever it worth, I don't think too many people are going to see this video, but for whatever it's worth, if you have any intellectual rigorous analysis, I'm not claiming to be a big intellectual or anything like that, but if you have any respect for your own intellectual process and your own your own thinking of truth, things like that, then you will completely understand that this most of the things that have been published in such a quick time, that they have time to, I don't know how they wrote so much in so little time. I don't know if they had time to think about it. Obviously they didn't think too much about it, but if you are honest and you really want to have something constructive taken out of the conversation, I think if anything Peterson came out stronger. His ideas, I mean. And personally I think that he wasn't in his sheer state of mind, or something may have happened to him personally or something. He looks a little bit troubled, not because of his confrontation with Zizek or anything. Maybe a couple of videos before, in the last month or 2 months, he doesn't seem like himself, I would say, Peterson, because I don't know, he seems more prone to emotions, something like that, which he's entitled to. He's a human being too, of course. It's not his duty is not to defend one thing or another. So if anything, we saw a guy who was doing his best, presented his ideas, but maybe wasn't in the best state of mind and emotional state to defend his ideas at this point. But his ideas are strong enough that they do not need a big joke like Zizek do, a lot of jokes, a lot of charismatic presentation. The ideas are the ideas, and then if you have any rational understanding, you don't need a clown there in front attacking or making a joke, which both of these figures can be a little bit clowny sometimes, and they both have been at times more bright than others, but don't confuse this show ability to present a show with the actual ideas or discussion. I think that the 10 points that Peterson did about the Communist Manifesto are really, really good. They are not necessarily the original of him, I don't know about that, but they are a great synthesis of very dispersed ideas. If you ask somebody why doesn't Marx work, why doesn't Marxism work, you will rarely find such a short and synthesized presentation of why Marxism doesn't work. And I think I have said enough. I think that I think that normally I don't I wouldn't take the time or I don't think I'm the best the best person to make a video about what happened between Peterson and this Zizek philosopher, but I have to say it because it's such I'm such embarrassed by the reaction of the people, the general people. It looks like they look like kids, they just rush out to declare a winner and then to rejoice internally in some sick way into some kind of virtual reality destruction of Peterson. There is something very unhealthy about this, and these are the same people who claim they are very many times there are the same people who claim they are so worried about the poor people, they are so compassionate, they are so empathic, but they want to destroy somebody, they want to ruin the reputation of somebody. They rejoice internally in this in this I say totally virtual destruction. I don't know if they do it because they don't really understand the depth of the ideas that were discussed there, or they're just so they don't care about what really happened. In that case, they would be really postmodernist thinkers and or practitioners of postmodernism. They don't care what really happened, what the truth is. They just want to it's an opportunity to power, play your power hand. Now you have a powerful figure behind you that you can use intellectually, and that's what they're doing, I guess. They're just they're just playing the power game. Like I have the power now. I will use it because I have granted this. I've been granted the upper hand because this guy is a real philosopher, right? And so I don't know. Who knows what the motivation is to simplify to the point that you actually make a caricature of what really happened there. But it's a little bit disgusting to see what the people are writing about this. And it's also a little bit weird to see that in Google, when you search in Google or in YouTube, what you see mostly is people rushing to say all these things, how one guy destroyed another and things like that. It's weird, it's really weird and so intellectually dishonest, I think. So anyway, guys, if anything, watch this hour. Thank you, and you may agree or disagree. I don't care. Still, whatever, for whatever it's worth. This is my opinion, and I think I have plenty of. If I'm not a professional philosopher, but I have plenty of life experience with communism and communist ideas and ideologies, and I had to study communism for a while, and so I think I'm better equipped than 99% of the general people that you find in the street to say something about what really motivates people that are communists and also people that don't claim that they are communists, but they carry on many of the points that of communists without they even noticing, or maybe they notice and they don't want to claim it. And so I definitely agree that this neo-Marxist, post-modernist, neo-Marxist, they definitely exist. They don't know that they are like that, but they don't take the time to actually see the definition and and see if that applies to them. But they maybe they wouldn't understand why, because many of them don't even know what Marxism is. They don't know what socialism is, and so they just these ideas carry on naturally. And I don't claim that these people know Marx and they took these ideas from Marx on purpose. These ideas are very common, and they are on the leftish thinking people that and they don't recognize that they are part of the Marxist ideology because they don't know what is part of the Marxist ideology. And when you point it out to them, they go like, okay, why do you say I'm a socialist? Why do you say I'm a Marxist? And I point out to the web because Marx said this and that, and then they say, so but the fact that they don't know that that they are using the same ideas doesn't mean that they're not that you cannot call them neo-Marxist. So I think that we saw an interesting debate. I wouldn't say that it was a waste of time, but we didn't see an equal match. I think that Peterson, his ideas were really strong and weren't matched by anything equally strong in any way. They were matched by a kind of a guerrilla thing where you attack from many points and don't hold any ground. And so in that thing, I would say there was no real debate. It was just a presentation of Peterson ideas, and then some, dancing around some points on the edge, but nothing that went against the core of Peterson ideas. So as far as I can say, there was no debate. There was not even an equal match in any way. It was actually, a big win for Dr. Peterson, as far as I can say. I'm not saying that he defeated Zizek. I'm just saying Zizek couldn't be defeated because he didn't stand for anything. So how you defeat intellectually somebody that doesn't have any, that doesn't present his main points, right? He just criticized Peterson. So in that way, the only outcome it could happen is Peterson hold his ground, or he was won over by this guy's ideas. And I think what happened, in all honesty, is that Peterson held his ground very well. And the other thing couldn't have happened. Zizek couldn't be destroyed because, as I said, he didn't present any body of thought coherently, so we know what he stands for. So anyway, guys, thank you again, and now I'm finishing with this video. So thank you, and bye bye.